It's Wednesday, the 11th of June. Welcome to the President's Daily Brief. I'm Mike Baker, your eyes and ears on the world stage. All right, let's get briefed. We'll start things off with a warning out of Germany, where the country's foreign intelligence chief is raising the alarm over Russia's plans to test NATO's resolve in the Baltics, which could include the deployment of Moscow's shadowy little green men, which makes them sound far more adorable than they actually are. We'll have the details. Later in the show, a third Chinese national is now facing charges for allegedly smuggling biological materials into the U.S. Plus, the UN's nuclear watchdog says North Korea is likely building a new uranium-enrichment plant. That's signaling Kim Jong-un's apparent intent to expand his nuclear arsenal. And in today's Back of the Brief, a first in the conflict between Israel and the Houthis, as the Israeli Navy strikes the Yemeni port city of Hodeida. But first, today's PDB Spotlight. It appears Russia's Vladimir Putin has an appetite for a wider confrontation with Europe, as he reportedly looks to further test the resolve of the NATO alliance. It's already apparent that Putin has little interest in a peaceful settlement to his war in Ukraine, and now it appears the Kremlin's territorial ambitions could extend beyond Ukraine's borders to the Baltic states. That's according to Germany's foreign intelligence chief, who warned Monday that Russia is gearing up for a broader clash with the West. More specifically, Bruno Kahl, head of Berlin's Federal Intelligence Service, said his agency has clear intelligence that Russian officials no longer believe that the NATO treaty's Article 5 collective defense clause holds any practical weight, particularly when it comes to the U.S. As a reminder, that clause stipulates that if a single member of NATO is attacked, it represents an attack on the entire alliance. While he declined to detail the nature of the intelligence, Kahl said, quote, "We are quite certain, and we have intelligence showing it, that Ukraine is only a step on the journey westward. There are people in Moscow who no longer believe that NATO's Article 5 works, and they would like to test it," end quote. He said the Baltic states along the alliance's eastern flank are the most obvious targets for such tests by Russia, warning it would likely take the form of a hybrid warfare campaign involving covert operations, but be geared to stop short of a full military engagement. Kahl continued, quote, "They don't need to dispatch armies of tanks for that. It's enough to send little green men to Estonia to protect supposedly oppressed Russian minorities." For some background, little green men is a term first used to refer to Russian military personnel who wore masks and carried non-identifiable weapons and equipment and dressed in a mixture of unmarked uniforms and civilian clothes during the 2014 annexation of Crimea. During the opening stages of Russia's campaign to occupy the Ukrainian peninsula, these forces seized key strategic facilities in Crimea, all while Moscow denied having any knowledge of their national identity. At one point, the Kremlin claimed the little green men were local self-defense units. But the fiction didn't hold for long. A month into operations in Crimea, Putin congratulated the forces on their success and later awarded them victory medals for seizing the territory. The little green men strategy is clear. It allows Russia to engage in provocative offensive military actions while maintaining a degree, such as it is, of plausible deniability about their involvement. Well, as long as the international community is stupid and feckless enough to let them get away with it, which of course they were when Putin seized Crimea. If Germany's intelligence proves accurate, we could soon see a similar strategy employed by the Kremlin in the Baltic states. The warning comes, of course, at a time of mounting uncertainty in Europe over the Trump administration's commitment to the NATO alliance and the security of the European continent. It's worth noting, however, that Kahl said recent contacts with his U.S. counterparts left him confident that America takes the Russian threat, quote, as seriously as us. But anxieties in Europe, remain high. The alarming intelligence from Germany follows statements made by NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte on Monday, who warned that Russia is far outpacing the bulk of the NATO alliance in terms of defense spending and weapons manufacturing. He said Russia's military-industrial complex is currently producing arms at a rate that would allow them to attack Europe within 5 years. That's according to a report from Newsweek. Rutte said that this year alone, Russia is expected to make some 1,500 tanks, 3,000 armored vehicles, and 200 Iskander missiles. He called for a, quote, quantum leap in collective defense spending, suggesting members aim to contribute up to 3.5% of annual GDP on military spending and another 1.5% on defense-related expenditures such as roads and airfields and ports. That mirrors President Trump's demand that members contribute roughly 5% of their GDP toward defense. Rutte said he agreed that, quote, America has carried too much of the burden for too long. Getting into specifics, he called for a 400% increase in NATO's arsenal of air and missile defenses, pointing to Russia's reliance on aerial attacks against Ukraine. Rutte concluded, quote, wishful thinking will not keep us safe. We cannot dream away the danger. Hope is not a strategy. So NATO has to become a stronger, fairer, and more lethal alliance, end quote. Well, it's kind of hard to spot the lie in that statement. All right, coming up next, a Chinese national charged with smuggling biological materials into the U.S. Oh, wait, I should say another Chinese national charged with smuggling biological materials into the U.S. And fresh warnings that North Korea is expanding its nuclear program. Those stories when we come back. Hey, Mike Baker here. Look, if you own a handgun, you've likely faced a tough choice, right? Keep it locked up and safe, or accessible but unsecured. Now, Stopbox USA offers a solution with the Stopbox Pro. It's mechanical and keyless, and it's designed for fast, secure access without batteries or electronics. It provides quick access when every second counts. It's made in the USA, it's TSA compliant for secure travel, and it's part of a full line of innovative gear, including vehicle safes and chamber locks. For a limited time only, our listeners get 10% off their entire order when you use code PDB. Right now, Stopbox is running a deal on their most popular bundle. That would be the 2-pack, which saves you over 30% and comes with free accessories and shipping. That's 10% off and a big bundle discount when you use the code PDB at StopBoxUSA.com. Discover a better way to balance security and readiness with Stopbox. Welcome back to the PDB. In what is becoming their signature move, a third Chinese national has been nabbed by authorities for attempting to smuggle potentially dangerous biological materials into the U.S. And this time, the story involves a research university in Wuhan, China, of all places. Now, you might recall Wuhan as the site of the infamous lab, where the Chinese were doing gain-of-function testing on COVID just prior to the pandemic. No coincidence there. The Chinese regime, along with some regime apologists and assorted morons in the West, continue to deny any connection between the pandemic and the Wuhan lab. As a side note, the failure of the Chinese regime to be transparent about COVID and the international community's complete failure to hold the regime to account simply means that the world will not be as prepared as necessary for the next pandemic. But now, back to our story. The DOJ brought charges Monday against the Chinese national, named as Cheng Xuan Han, following her arrest on Sunday after arriving at the Detroit Metropolitan Airport on a J-1 visa. Han is the third Chinese national charged for trying to circumvent U.S. customs to bring biological materials into the U.S. through that same airport in just the past week. Han, a Chinese doctoral student at a science and technology university in Wuhan, China, is accused of smuggling the biological materials into the U.S. for work at a laboratory at the University of Michigan. If that sounds familiar, well, it's because a University of Michigan laboratory was linked last week to a conspiracy by two Chinese nationals accused of smuggling a dangerous crop-killing pathogen described as a potential agro-terrorism weapon. According to the new criminal complaint from the DOJ, in 2024 and 2025, Han allegedly sent 4 shipments from China containing concealed biological material related to roundworms addressed to staff members at the University of Michigan laboratory, where she planned to spend a year completing a project. Much like last week's story, Han's motivations and research plans remain unclear, but we should note that roundworms, which are a type of parasite, of course, have potential applications as a biological weapon. They're highly resilient, considered relatively easy to manipulate, and can cause serious illness in humans with limited known treatment options. According to a report from CBS News, when first stopped by Customs and Border Protection officers at the Detroit airport, Han was evasive, lying about the packages and the biological materials she's accused of previously sending. When interviewed later by FBI agents, Han fessed up to sending the material, which she reportedly hid between pages of books. She also admitted to lying to the CBP officers and confirmed the materials were related to roundworms, which require a government permit to ship. Furthermore, just 3 days before her trip to the U.S., Han admitted to deleting all the contents of an electronic device that she had in her possession when arrested. Now, I'm not Poirot, of course, but that behavior is indicative of guilt. In a statement, United States Attorney Jerome Gorgon said, quote, "The alleged smuggling of biological materials by this individual from a science and technology university in Wuhan is part of an alarming pattern that threatens our security. The American taxpayer should not be underwriting a PRC-based smuggling operation at one of our crucial public institutions." End quote. As we recently discussed on the PDB, last week the DOJ brought similar charges against 2 Chinese nationals, including an alleged Communist Party loyalist who works at an agricultural lab at the University of Michigan. They're accused of smuggling samples of an agricultural pathogen that experts warn could theoretically be manipulated to become resistant to treatment or to spread more easily. If weaponized in such a way, it could be used to attack American farms and spread disease in the population. The suspect, who worked at the University of Michigan lab, reportedly signed a loyalty pledge to the Chinese Communist Party in January 2024. That was just 6 months before her accomplice was stopped with the samples. Their intentions remain unclear, but the story felt uncomfortably reminiscent of allegations of gain-of-function research related to the COVID-19 pandemic. While the University of Michigan has not commented on the latest case, they did issue a statement last week condemning any acts seeking to cause harm, well, that's nice, and stressed that they received no funding from the Chinese Communist Party. Okay, shifting to North Korea. The regime is building a new uranium-enrichment facility at its main nuclear complex, in what UN inspectors warn is the clearest sign yet that Kim Jong-un is preparing to expand his nuclear arsenal. International Atomic Energy Agency Chief Rafael Grossi briefed the agency's board of governors this week, citing satellite imagery of a newly built structure in Yongbyon, about 60 miles north of Pyongyang. Grossi said the facility bore what he called, quote, dimensions and features similar to the Kangsun enrichment plant. That's a long-suspected covert site just outside the capital, suspected of fueling North Korea's weapons program. For those unfamiliar, the IAEA has been locked out of North Korea since 2009, and since then, inspectors have been forced to rely almost entirely on satellite surveillance and the regime's heavily curated state media output. While the IAEA has stopped short of confirming that the new structure is operational, Grossi's assessment all but suggests Pyongyang may be preparing to bring a third enrichment facility online, joining the legacy Yongbyon site and the shadowy Kangsun complex. This development comes just days after North Korean state television aired fresh footage of Kim himself touring uranium facilities, where he reportedly urged engineers to, quote, overfulfill targets for weapons-grade uranium and produce, quote, exponentially more nuclear warheads. It was the latest in a string of high-profile visits. Back in September 2024 and January of this year, Kim was photographed inspecting separate enrichment locations, each packed with rows of centrifuges. Analysts say that the structural differences between the locations fueled speculation of a third facility now entering the fold. The regime's long defiance of UN Security Council resolutions is, well documented. 6 underground nuclear tests, dozens of ballistic missile launches, and a growing arsenal that has all but normalized North Korea's status as a nuclear power. Now, to be clear, North Korea has long maintained the technical capacity to produce both types of atomic bomb fuel, plutonium and highly enriched uranium. The IAEA also recently detected signs of renewed plutonium reprocessing activity at Yongbyon, using spent fuel from a Soviet-era reactor. If confirmed, it would indicate Kim is doubling down on both fuel streams to rapidly grow his warhead stockpile. Western intelligence agencies estimate that North Korea has already stockpiled around 50, that's 50, nuclear warheads, and has enough fissile material to produce 40 more. The Stockholm International Peace Research Institute echoed that warning last year, saying the arsenal could grow significantly under current conditions. The timing of this nuclear sprint is, well, no coincidence. Pyongyang's deepening military partnership with Russia, complete with arms transfers and troop deployments to support Moscow's war in Ukraine, has raised fears that Kim is feeling emboldened, not isolated. And despite efforts to revive diplomacy, the path back to that table is rocky at best. While the Trump administration has expressed openness to restarting talks, even after the collapse of the 2019 Hanoi summit, during President Trump's first administration, Kim hasn't shown the slightest appetite for negotiations. All right, coming up next in the back of the brief, a first in the Israel-Houthi conflict as the Israeli Navy strikes the Yemeni port city of Hodeida. I'll be right back. Hey, Mike Baker here. Let me take just a few seconds of your time to talk about your personal finances and your hard-earned savings and how to protect them. Now, did you know that in the last 12 months, gold's value has jumped 30%? And central banks, well, you know what they're doing? They're buying gold in record amounts. With the usual ups and downs in the stock market and general uncertainty over the global economy and the trade wars and the BRICS nations pushing to replace the U.S. dollar as the global reserve currency, it's no wonder that thousands of Americans are turning to Birch Gold Group. Because in times of uncertainty, gold can offer peace of mind. Now, Birch Gold makes it easy to convert your IRA or your 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold. Or like a lot of folks, you can buy gold to store at home. Just text PDB to 989-898, and Birch Gold will send you a free information kit on gold. Look, there's no obligation. It's just useful information. With an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, take control of protecting your savings today. Just text PDB to 989-898. In today's back of the brief, Israel just upped the ante against the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen, launching its first seaborne assault, targeting docks in Hodeida to curb ongoing missile attacks. The strike on the Red Sea port city was carried out by Israeli boats on Tuesday. It was a notable shift from prior Israeli responses that relied solely on air power, underscoring a widening theater of operations for the IDF. Now, Hodeida, more than 1,100 miles from Israel's southern tip, has long been a logistical thorn in Israel's side. Previous Israeli strikes required long-range air power and aerial refueling due to the port's location. The port itself, long a suspected conduit for Iranian arms shipments, has become a focal point of concern for the Israeli government. Officials in Jerusalem accuse the Houthis of using the site to skirt UN inspections and channel precision-guided weaponry into their arsenal. In a statement, the IDF made its reasoning plain, stating the strikes were aimed at halting the, quote, use of the port for military purposes, calling Hodeida a key node in what it described as the Houthis', quote, cynical exploitation of civilian infrastructure. The extent of the damage remains unclear. No videos or photos were immediately released, though Houthi sympathizers referenced reports of missile fire. The seaborne assault comes as the Iran-backed group escalates its long-range attacks on Israel in retaliation for the war in Gaza. Just hours after the naval strike, Jerusalem was rocked by the sound of air defenses, intercepting what Israel says was a missile fired from Yemen. Defense Minister Israel Katz warned more strikes may follow if the Houthis continue their aggression, stating, quote, we warned the Houthi terror organization that if they continue to fire at Israel, they will face a powerful response and enter a naval and air blockade. As we've tracked here on the PDB, the Houthis have mounted more than 100 attacks on commercial shipping since November of 2023, killing 4 sailors and sinking 2 vessels. Their campaign jeopardizes roughly $1 trillion in annual trade in one of the most critical maritime corridors. Both the U.S. and Israel have struck Hodeida before, but American airstrikes tapered off after President Trump declared the Houthis had, quote, capitulated following U.S. airstrikes back in March. But Tuesday's naval strike signals that Israel is prepared to unilaterally escalate pressure on the Houthi rebels if the threats continue. And that, my friends, is the President's Daily Brief for Wednesday, the 11th of June. Now, if you have any questions or comments, please reach out to me at pdb@thefirsttv.com. And, of course, if you'd like to listen to the show ad-free, well, we have made that possible. All you have to do is become a premium member of the President's Daily Brief by visiting pdbpremium.com. I'm Mike Baker, and I'll be back later today with the PDB Afternoon Bulletin. Until then, stay informed, stay safe, stay cool. Hey, Mike Baker here. Now, as you know, well, I am known far and wide as a real fashion icon. It's true. So let me give you the benefit of my style knowledge and tell you about a great company, and that would be True Classic. True Classic goes beyond fit and fabric. Their mission is to help men show up with confidence and purpose. That's what you want to do, right? Confidence and purpose. Their clothing is designed to fit well, feel great, and stay affordable so men can look sharp without overspending. Now, what truly sets True Classic apart is the intention behind the brand. What I mean by that is from supporting underserved communities to helping men feel more confident in their daily lives and even bringing humor to their messaging, they lead with purpose. Each piece is tailored where it matters and relaxed where it counts, offering a clean, comfortable fit that works for everyday life. There's no stiff fabric. Nobody wants stiff fabric. There's no bunching. You definitely don't want bunching. Just dependable quality and design. I have got a bunch of their T-shirts and sweatpants. They are terrific. Anyway, say goodbye to overpriced designer labels and throw away fast fashion. True Classic is built for comfort, built to last, and built to give back. Find them at Target, Costco, or visit trueclassic.com/PDB to learn more and explore their collection.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and leave a comment, a really positive, nice, and kind comment. That would be appreciated. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our daily updates.